Good afternoon, and welcome to yet another edition of the Embedded Executive Podcast. This week, my embedded executive is Sjoerd and he is the Chief Product Officer at Solid Sands. How you doing, Sjoerd?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
And you're based in the Netherlands, is that true?
Yes, we are in Amsterdam with Solid Sands, and I live just outside of Amsterdam.
Here we go completely off topic. I've heard some interesting things about Amsterdam lately that it's becoming too expensive for regular people to live there anymore. Is there truth to that?
Yes, it is. Like in many European cities today, prices go up quite high. There's a lot of demand, and there's little offering.
Interesting, but it is such a beautiful city. I've been there multiple times myself. Anyway, okay, so let's get back onto the topic here. As you well know, our job here at Embedded Computing Design is to help the engineer, the developer, do his job. And we're going to go down the path of ADAS qualification here because I know that's your area of expertise. And it is often baffling for our audience when it comes to compilers and the libraries when they have to do this qualification. So let me start off with, is that accurate? Is this something that developers often struggle with?
I would not say a struggle because you need the compiler, of course. It's the most important tool in the whole tool chain. But there is a lot of unknown about the compiler in the terms of how would you qualify the tool in a safety case.
So
And
are you
then
using a specific qualify or a specific compiler for ADAS as opposed to some general compiler?
no, so we are not using compilers ourselves. We built a test suite that allows you to completely test and validate your compiler in your development platform for your application. So we built the test suite that then provides the insight to developers and to safety managers of their compiler in use at their applications.
How often do you find that these compilers fail these tests?
Well, to be honest, I could say always. So the compiler is the most complex piece of software written. It's a tool, but it's also written in software. The compiler needs to interpret a higher level programming language, which is on a higher abstraction level. For embedded software, automotive embedded safety critical software, uh, higher level languages are typically C or C++, more
Hmm.
recently also Rust. But the programmer lives and develops in that space. Now the compiler needs to interpret that on their front end, translate that into machine instructions, and while translating, also trying to optimize that code. So this compiler is transforming the source code into target platform machine instructions. And that's a very complex step. Many things can happen. And from beyond the translation, the original software engineer does not anymore oversee what comes out of that, but fully relies on the compiler to do its job correctly. And that's the challenge. And that is where we say you cannot always fully rely on any compiler in a safety critical environment without developing the trust that your source code is correctly being translated.
Okay. Is there something special, different, or more complex about working in the ADAS environment as opposed to some other environment?
Not so much that we, apart from the ADAS, which is automotive industry, any safety critical industry, comes with safety requirements, and those safety requirements are there not for nothing. They are there to avoid hazards that could be life-taking. And it's in that sense, it's the automotive industry, it's the avionics space industry, robotics industry, mixing robots in industry halls with human operators, etc. So for all these kind of industries where embedded safety criticality comes into play, it's important.
Are the people who offer you their compilers to be tested, are they typically surprised at the results that they're getting?
Um, yes, so there are actually we serve two types of customers. One is the semiconductor providers and the toolchain providers. They basically work on compilers and then deliver compilers to the market. And then there are the users of compilers. So those are two different groups.
Hmm.
So the builders of compilers, of course, they know about the complexity and they use our tool suite to put in the highest quality. So they know that errors occur, they know that bugs occur whenever there's an update, and they want to make sure that regression errors don't go into production. But then on the side of the users of compilers, there is less awareness of the complexity of the compiler. And they sometimes, yes, indeed, are surprised because they think, hey, this is a compiler ready for production, and now I find a flaw in it.
If you guys don't produce a compiler, what makes Solid Sands an expert in this space?
Well, first and foremost, the team at Solid Sense comes from a compiler development team. So we are a spin out of a compiler developer. We spun out 10 years ago, so that's already quite a long time. But we retained those experts to the company. Um, in that compiler developer company, they had to build their own internal Q&A test suite. And that test suite, we are now marketing that towards safety critical markets and industries.
Why don't you just produce a compiler that passes all these tests? Wouldn't that be a better product to sell?
Yeah, you have to have focus on this, and just produce a compiler. That's not that easy. Yeah, only in the test suite. There's already 150 man years of engineering involved. Now imagine the complexity of a compiler. So that's not something that you can just decide to develop and market. That's not realistic.
You don't go into ChatGPT and say, hey, produce me a compiler for ADAS?
No, unfortunately, that's not possible, but maybe also fortunately.
Very
Yeah,
true, very true.
yeah.
Uh, are the rules changing in ADAS? Does the things you're looking for today, is it different than what you'll be looking for a year from now?
Well, the rules have changed a bit, and that also is geographically determined.
That was my
So,
next question. It is country
yeah,
specific.
yeah, it's also country specific. So ADAS, autonomous driving in the US is being rolled out differently than in Europe, for example, and in China equally differently as well. In Europe, it's what we call safety first. So before you go on the road, before you put the technology on the people, you first have to prove your safety case. So that means a lot of work upfront. In the US and in China, still the test and putting the technology on the street is possible without such a safety first evidence, still, of course, with the correct safety procedures in place. But this allows you to quicker yeah, gather real life experiments data, and as such roll out faster. That's the difference between Europe and the US and China. But in any case, to deploy such a complex system out in the field, where hazards are there and where lives are at stake, it's important to follow proper safety culture. And for that, there are safety frameworks. For the automotive, there's ISO 26262, which is derived from the IEC 61508. And that gives you a framework to at least do whatever you can reasonably do with the state of the art to avoid risks and stay with a residual risk, which is always there, but then acceptable. And this ISO 26262 is something that came into play in the past few years. So this is now a new framework that everybody is using. And in some countries in the Europe, it's also a regulation before you go on the road, you have to use this standard, and according to the standard, provide your evidence that you're safe to go.
Okay. Big question for you here.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable putting your family in an autonomous vehicle right now?
Depends which autonomous vehicle, but from practice, I can tell you that last July, when I visited San Francisco for another conference, I took myself and my wife afterwards into a Waymo taxi, and I was completely confident.
Okay. All right. Well, if it works for you, it works for me because you're the expert.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you
No, I
very much,
was,
Sjoerd.
yeah,
Very
okay.
enlightening. That was Sjoerd Vanderswan. He is the Chief Product Officer at Solid Sands, and I am Rich Nass with Open Systems Media.